Okay, guys, the H1B guy here, and tonight we have the Documented Dreamers series live, episode 1, hosted by the H1B guy. If you haven't already, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to the H1B guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that we can promote it through the algorithm here on YouTube and I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention that the H1B guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. Tonight's live stream is brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. If you're new to this channel and you're wondering why the H1B guy is covering legal childhood arrivals or documented dreamers, that answer is very simple. One of the founding principles and missions of the H1B guy platform is to bring awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. This issue has both a direct and indirect impact in that regard. So first things first, if you have a documented dreamer dependent, that's a legal childhood arrival under the age of 21, but no matter their current age, please go to the improvethedream.org/survey. Tonight, we're not going to do our usual long-form Q&A as we typically do here on these live streams, but what I would like for you to do is to comment. For those of you watching, if you're impacted by this issue, please put your story in the comments so that we can put it out there for everyone to be aware of how this is impacting not only kids, but their families. I was introduced to these young adults, aka kids that you're going to meet, via their parents who asked me to help advise them on a plan for advocacy for children that are aging out. So I want to give a special thank you to Vivek, Nitin, Raj, and Sanjeev for trusting me to bring this issue to life. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to these dreamers here tonight. So I want to start with Deep. Deep, how you doing? All right, Deep, I think you're on mute. Go ahead. Go again.
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Awesome. Summer, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thank you, Summer. Vishal, how are you? Oh, you're on mute.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having us on.
Awesome. Thank you, Vishal. Appreciate you joining us. Palami, how are you?
I'm good. Looking forward to today's panel.
Awesome. Awesome. And closing up with Anag, how are you?
Hey, Rob. Hey, everybody. Great to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you know, I just wanted to say I'm just really excited to have the 5 of you on. You know, we already have almost 60 people watching this stream. So, you know what that tells me is that I think we might break a record here tonight on the H1B Guy channel. My record is 80 for one session live stream. So let's see if we can get that number over 100. I'm fairly confident that that's going to happen. So if you're watching the stream, please like this video so that we can continue to promote the algorithm. As I mentioned earlier, if you haven't already, go to improvethedream.org/survey. If you have a documented dreamer, that's a kid under the age of 21, improvethedream.org needs your help. And I'll post that link in the comments here in the chat in a few seconds. But what we're going to do is we're going to go around the horn here. We're just going to ask, you know, some very individual questions so that you can get to know each of these kids. Then we're going to do a rapid fire group session. As I mentioned, if you're impacted by this issue, we're not going to do a Q&A, but I would like to highlight some of those stories. Please post your situation in the chat. All right. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to kick it off and move right to Deep. And as some of you have met, you know, Deep already through the H1B Guy introduces the Documented Dreamer series. You know, Deep is the founder behind improvethedream.org. So Deep, if you can tell us, you know, why and how did improvethedream.org get started?
Absolutely. 2 years ago, I started Improve the Dream to really start bringing awareness to children who grow up in this country with, were brought here documented, grow up in the country, and they're aging out at 21 years of age. And it's something that really isn't covered in the media. People aren't aware of it. I think the common person really doesn't even know it's possible to grow up legally and be here for 10, 15, over 20 years and still not have a path to permanent residence. So I started Improve the Dream with a vision that all children, whether they're undocumented or documented, who grow up in the United States should have a clear path to citizenship. And with that, we're trying to bring awareness of these excluded individuals who aren't qualifying for programs like DACA or the DREAM Act, so that we can achieve the goal of all of us, like basically all of us who grew up here, qualifying for future programs that include those people.
And you said that started a couple of years ago, is that right? So 2019, 18, when did that start?
Early 2019.
Early 2019.
Yeah.
And, I haven't asked you this, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Is it nonprofit? Are you taking financial contributions? Are you doing, have you gotten that far yet?
No, it is nonprofit, but I haven't ever taken financial contributions. So it's completely volunteer work.
Okay. And is there any plans as you continue this advocacy? Are we looking at doing some sort of, fundraising efforts? I know we really want folks to go, again, to improvethedream.org/survey. And as I've promoted, improvethedream.org/take action. But is there any plans for that in the future? And I just want folks to be prepared for when I hit them on Twitter that this is time for you to put your dollars where your tweets are. I want them to be prepared for that in the future, right? So can you give me any insight on what those plans are?
Yeah, so there isn't any plan made for anything like that, but I really think, there's power in the numbers. So if we can get lots of young people involved, I don't think we really need like big amounts of money or anything like that. If we can get people involved, reaching out to their congressional offices, and one thing we're doing is we've started a Slack group, which if your kids complete that survey that Rob mentioned earlier, we'll send them a link, and we're working together to reach out to congressional offices. So I think like different things that we do can raise our voices. But it's something that we can consider in the future if necessary.
I just continue to be amazed by you, Deep, and your knowledge and just everything that you've done, so far. And, we're already almost at 90 streamers right now. So we've set a record here on this channel, literally in a matter of 10 minutes. Why? Because this is an issue that is a problem. And one of you went through being outside of the country, during, the travel ban and, the F1 sort of, you have to be on site. And so, I want to move over to Summer. And Summer, you recently aged out. And you went through a change of status where you were also caught up in this, F1 travel ban. Walk me through that timeline of when you aged out, went through changing status, were outside of the country with this sort of uncertainty of re-entry, waiting for approval, waiting to get back to your soccer club, your university soccer team. What was that like for you?
It was unreal, honestly. It's really crazy looking back on it, how it all worked out. It was a day that I knew was coming ever since we moved to America. I was only a year old when we moved, so it always seemed like it was really far in the future, and all of a sudden it was just here this summer. And honestly, probably at one of the worst times that it possibly could have been. Going back to England, I have a bunch of extended family there, but it's not my home. It's not where I've grown up. It's not what I know. So going there was really different. especially in a pandemic, everything is a lot more reserved. There was travel bans. I knew that I was going to get to England, but I didn't know if it was going to go into an extra lockdown, and then I wasn't going to be able to get to the embassy to then complete the F1 process. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back to America to get back to my university. Like you said, I'm on the soccer team, so we had preseason starting early August. I had my visa embassy appointment got rescheduled 3 times. So it was like, coach, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'll be back in a month. I don't know if I'll be back in 2 months. I don't know if I'll be back at all ever. And so that was really stressful, especially having an incomplete degree as well. I haven't finished college. I graduate in April, which is really exciting, but there was just so many unknowns, and so many unknowns that were added with COVID. So yeah, it was a very, very stressful, very scary time this summer.
Walk me through what that appointment process was like. You said it was rescheduled 3 times. When you finally got the notice that, hey, date's booked, it's set, you show up. What was the questioning like? Because there was a lot of heightened sort of anxiety if we go back and look at June, July, August, and a lot of the communication that was going on. It just seemed like we were on edge as a country, right? We were going through the Democratic National Convention, the Republican National Convention. All that was around the time that you were trying to get back in the country to get back to school. What was that appointment process like?
So once I did finally have my appointment, I literally left the next day. I booked a flight that night, and I left the next morning. And then I had to quarantine for 2 weeks once I arrived in England. And then after arriving and doing my quarantine, I was able to go to the embassy in London, which was a decent drive from where I was staying. And even the embassy was on heightened security with COVID. They weren't having as many appointments. People were spaced out, social distancing, masks, which makes interviews a lot harder because interviews aren't just about what you're saying. They're also about body language and presentation and all of those kinds of things. So once there's 2 parts to that process. There's your interview and then your documentation part. So that was definitely stressful going through all of those processes. And then coming back also, like you said, with the US going through all those different conventions, and then also they have a travel ban. So trying to, at both airports, I had questioning of, are you essential? Like, we're not sure. We have to check with our manager. We have to check with this person. And there was just a lot more hoops to jump through than I ever expected there to be.
Yeah, and this just a fight to get back in the country, to get back to what you know. I mean, as you said, 20 years of your life. And that's, I think for a lot of the common Americans, that's just something that's so unfathomable for us, is to be outside of the country, not being able to get back into what we know as our home. Wanted to ask you, if you're currently watching this video, please like this video. We are over 107 and counting now, guys. So, I mean, let's just keep going. Let's like this video. Subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Subscribe to Improve the Dream on YouTube. Their Twitter handle, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, improvethedream.org/survey. Make sure that you hit that site. So I want to move on to Vishal. And Vishal, you have a story that really fits directly into what I talk about here on this channel. And a lot of it is STEM-based recruitment. That's how I got into this H1B world. You've currently aged out. You're on an F1, getting your master's in cybersecurity. I mean, I don't think you could pick a hotter subject to study right now. I mean, you're basically going to graduate and have probably 3 or 4 offers in hand before you graduate. But once you graduate, you're eligible for an OPT EAD, and then you're also eligible for an OPT EAD STEM extension. This is going to give you 36 months Before then, you're most likely going to age into an expiration of your EAD stem and have to move into what I call the H1B cycle, which is you need an employer to sponsor you in the HCAP lottery. How does that make you feel in terms of knowing that that is the defined path for you? And if it's not the H1B path, then what other options are you considering?
Yeah, Rob, thank you for that. So, as a person with, I guess, like really big expectations for myself and really ambitious goals, it feels really demotivating and I guess discouraging to say. It makes me feel like everything that I've worked towards in the past few years was pointless because no matter what I do, no matter what job I apply for, no matter what opportunity that I get, I'll be judged for, where I was born instead of like the skills and accomplishments that I have. Throughout my time in college, I've been treated like an international student every step of the way, being asked to maintain a certain status, follow certain rules, fill out long, unnecessary paperwork that's, meant for foreign students, not for a person who spent their whole life here. My parents also had to pay out of pocket just to get me here to where I am today through college. And even after everything that I've worked for, I feel like my opportunities to find a job, to repay them at least, to do that would be really limited. And, after graduation, my opportunities are slim because not only do I have to find an employer who is willing to hire an international student and go through all those legal matters with me, but, I have to find an employer that, who's willing to sponsor me and pay me wages that is, that are out of the standard for an entry-level role. After, like you said, after my OPT expires, I have to go through the whole H1B process, which, after seeing my father go through it, it makes me laugh because, it means that by the time, I get a citizenship, I'll be a grandpa, that's what it is. And when I think about it, I've lost hope in ever being able to call or in the place that I've grown up in a home. I've considered other options like moving to Canada, finding a job there, getting a Canadian citizenship and coming back here. But just that timeline and just the whole process of it, leaving your friends behind, your family behind, just doesn't attract me. Or, I've also thought about going back to India permanently, but that's not what I want. That's not what I've hoped for. I didn't live 15 plus years here just to go back to India, where a place where I would feel like I'm left out. That's not, I don't know the culture there fully. I wouldn't fit in perfectly, and I don't want to be separated from my family and friends. This is my home, and if I have to fight to stay here, then I will.
Yeah, and I think that means that it's a willingness to go into the cycle to where you're tied to an employer.
Yeah.
And that employer dictates your job requirements, your compensation, when you're paid, the benefits that you're offered. And what that takes away is some freedom from you. And listen, I'm a big proponent of the H1B visa. I wouldn't be the H1B guy if I wasn't. But I think that the way that it currently is set up, there's a lot of the negativity in terms of, the cheap labor debate, the displacement of American workers. Yes, that happens. But Vishal, I look at somebody like you. Your parents came here on a work visa. You are US educated in a tech school for bachelor's and going to graduate from a master's.
Yeah.
Why in God's green earth would we want to put you into the H1B cycle other than for control? And that is the part of the concept of what the H1B is supposed to be and how it's intended to work that bothers me. And that's why I talk about this. And that's why you are one of the prime examples of why this is a problem, because you should have an EAD or some sort of W-2 work authorization so that when you graduate, you're not worried about what happens in 36 months. And that's where the system is broken.
Yeah.
So I wanted to move on to Palame because the last the first three folks that we talked to, Deep, Summer, and Vishal, have aged out. But Palami and Anag, who are going to speak next, have not. And so, Palami, you're a freshman at the University of Arizona, and you're already having to think about aging out and what your plan will be. And I know in the introductions we talked about, you're 18, but yet, this 3 years, really how quickly 36 months can go by, and what that's creating you to start beginning to think about. What are you considering right now? What are your options? I'm assuming F1, but then after that, where are you in terms of your current considerations?
So, starting in high school, I've always been interested in medicine and research. So my plan after college was to go to med school, which is obviously a lot more difficult as an international student. And I was hoping by the time I turned 21, obviously there would be legislation out there that could protect me and protect my status here. But if not, I will be switching to an F1 visa. And hopefully that will last me all 4 years of med school. And then, there's an alternative to that too. If med school isn't the way I go, I do want to also look into graduate school. I am studying public health, and getting a master's in public health is very appealing. But then after the F1 visa, I guess what I'll be entering is the H1B cycle, like you mentioned before, in a situation that Vishal is currently facing.
And I think, what's interesting about that is you start to look at what are your options, right? And, I think you said you came here when you were 5, I believe.
6, yeah.
6, yeah. So, 12 years, and here you are, you're going, wait, I've been here 12 years. Now these next 3 years feel like I'm running in a circle, because you don't know which way to go, other than that there's already this defined path, which is F1 to OPT EAD to H, right? And the good thing about med here, the med field for you, is that does have a little different path, right? You could go the exempt H1 path, which nonprofit designation gives you a little flexibility there, but it still is H1, meaning it's still employment based. When you've been here 12 years, your parents came on employment based, and they're stuck in green card backlog, right? And so there's no reason for you not to have work authorization past 21. It just creates the cycle that we continually talk about here. So I wanted to move on to Anag. I haven't shared this yet, but for anyone who watched the H1B Guy introduces the Documented Dreamer series, as those of you who've watched this channel for any amount of time know, I'm learning how to edit my own videos very slowly. It's a process for somebody who's over 40, okay, just for the record. But as I always talk about, I started the H1B Guy with an iPhone and a Chromebook. So I've come a long way. But what I will tell you is that I came up with this crazy idea to do a bunch of one-shot videos and splice them all together. And I sent it out to everyone who's here on the stream today. And Anag said, hey, do you mind? Can you send me the video? I want to clean this up. And this is after I'd already talked to Palame about, hey, maybe helping. And I just decided I'm going to try to figure out how to do this. So I say, hey, I can't send it to you, but why don't I just give you my login? And why don't you, he's like, okay. So he texts me like literally a couple hours later. He's like, video's done. I just realized that you had the job shared. He literally went back through, recreated and edited the whole video. And I had the work there in place. But I told him, I said, listen, you're going to have to take some time to show me how to do some of that, because I am learning. But what he did and what I did were totally two different things. And I just was so proud of how that came out. So I want to say thank you, first of all, for doing that. But you are next on the list here to age out. And biomedical, the Ohio State University, and just your passion for where you want to go, I think comes out. It's come out in my conversations with you. It's come out in your willingness just to jump right in and, say, hey, can I do this? And so, I guess the question for you is, I'm assuming you're going to take the F1 approach as well. But when do you age out, and what are the options that you are currently considering? You're on mute. Go ahead. Mute. There you go.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, first of all, I'm just going to echo that thank you right back at you, Rob, because, without you, this wouldn't have been possible, and we're getting our voices out there. So I think you definitely deserve that thanks. But to your question, yeah, I recently turned 20 early January. And I don't know, 20 has always seemed like such a huge milestone, but this year it was definitely a little bit more bittersweet. 21 is definitely even bigger of a milestone, but that'll be kind of that date when I officially age out. And so I have pretty much just 1 year left, and give or take a couple of months before I'm forced to make a big decision. So currently the plan is definitely to look into that F1 option, but that also comes with a couple of problems because apparently, and I just talked to like a couple of officials on this, and if you apply for an F1, it can sometimes get rejected if you don't show your intent to leave the country at the end of your F1 expiring. So because I'm in that green card process with my family right now, my F1 application could actually get denied. So it's kind of like an endless loop there. But there are also a couple of other problems that go with getting an F1, and I've been talking to Ohio State about it. That's where I go. And the administration has been extremely sympathetic to my situation, but ultimately they've been like, oh, I'm sorry, like we just can't do anything about it because it's a government law that they can't really go against. But yeah, one of the biggest problems is definitely potentially tuition. I currently pay in-state tuition, and a lot of times when you convert to an F1 and you officially become that international student, you have to pay out of state. And so for Ohio State, that means $20,000 every year extra just with tuition. And that's definitely something that's, to put it lightly, very suboptimal. So I'm not looking forward to that if that has to happen. Also, the timeline for an F1 is sometimes problematic. People that I've talked to have said that it can take pretty much, at least nowadays, it's taking around a year. So on the off chance that that application doesn't go through and everything doesn't work out by the time I age out, I might have to face several other problems. And then that last thing, of course, is in the long term. So again, just like Polomi, my plan is to go to med school, but like she said, the chances of getting into med school are much more difficult if you're considered an international student. That number is around 8% admission compared to a 40%. So like Vishal said, it's pretty demotivating to see that even though I'm doing all that I can and I'm so involved and I try to give back to my community, at most I have that 1/5 chance of getting into a med school. So that's definitely had me just sit down some days and just think about that for a long time. And it's pretty depressing to think about. And finally, my other option is to get into that H1B cycle, whether that's after that, after med school or before. But again, trying to think about that is also like, that's obviously not the best option. So all the roads forward, unless there's some change, seem to be like pretty dark.
What's sorry, didn't mean to do that there. What's interesting that I hadn't thought about, a point that you just hit, and I want to drive this point home. And my wife and I followed Dave Ramsey, and we worked the baby steps starting back in 2013. And I don't want to get off on a financial piece tangent, but you said something that I hadn't even thought about, Anag, and that is, as an F1 student, the cost of tuition. And what that creates is debt instantly, right? I mean, it just is amazing that here we are. Not only are we telling you that you can't continue to maintain your current status, but now we're going to triple your tuition. And yeah, we're sympathetic to your problem, but here's $25,000 for, this year. And I think that, wow. I mean, listen, we don't need to be accumulating debt in our young adults, right? I think that if there's a lesson to be learned here, it's money management at a younger age so that we don't continue the cycle that a lot of folks have found themselves in here recently, where they can't pay their bills because they're above their eyeballs in debt, right? And so I hadn't really thought about that, Anag, and that's just a great point that I think needs to be part of the conversation. Is that here I am, paying in-state tuition. Now I am an F1 paying international student tuition, right?
I'd like to add to that really quick as well.
Absolutely.
One thing that I found that was similar to Anag is I was told all through my schooling is that I'm just like everybody else. I'll be okay. When it comes to paying tuition, I'll be okay when it comes to applying for scholarships and getting that money to help me pay for tuition, until it came to my senior year and I turned in all those applications and I was denied because I wasn't a US citizen and I didn't have a green card. So now my tuition bill is higher, but I don't have, like, I spent 20 years of my life in the same town, and I did the community service. I was involved in my community. I was involved with kids. I was involved with old people. I was involved with middle-aged people, from wealthy to not wealthy. I was involved in sports teams, in clubs, and music and sports. I did everything that a regular American kid would do, and yet I didn't get the scholarships that I was expected to, just because my status was different than the person standing next to me with the same resume.
Yeah, and I that's the part of all of this that, and we'll get into this a little bit more, that just resonates, is that it's the only life that all of you have known. And I think that that's the piece of it that really misses. So we're going to move on into our group Q&A, where I'm going to put out some comments and questions and have you all just jump in, and I'll do my best to manage as you jump in. But I'm going to ask everyone who's currently watching, if you haven't already, to please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to Improve the Dream on YouTube. Follow them on Twitter, follow them on Facebook, Instagram, but most importantly, improvethedream.org/survey. And there is also a Slack channel. I'm going to put this in here too. Do you want me to paste this link into the chat? The Slack?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Yeah.
So sorry guys, I'm learning how to drive with more than just myself and one other. So here it is. It's a pretty long link. It's in the chat, but this is for kids only, correct, Deep?
That's correct, yes.
Documented Dreamer kids on the Slack channel here. So if you're watching this and you have a Documented Dreamer kid, 21 years of age or less, please make sure that they are on this Slack channel for communication in the group. And so, yesterday was a huge day here in this country. I mean, inaugurations, I remember as a kid in elementary school, they're such a big part of who we are. And you see those flags hanging out behind the president, and, so help me God, right? And, the thing that I think I want to bring up here is that a few days earlier, a lot of murmurs started to happen about a big immigration bill. Rumors started happening on Tuesday. The Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey was going to be named sponsor in the Senate. A lot of rumors about what it was going to be included. Very vague, ambiguous language. Specifically, I said that on Tuesday. And until we can read the fine print, it's just hearsay to me, really, what it is. I'm not saying that I'm not confident that something's going to happen. Very clearly something is, right? But let's make sure that we read the language. But what I found very interesting is that yesterday morning, on the buildbackbetter.org website, there was a quick link that came up, and then that disappeared later in the day, and it redirected just to the whitehouse.gov. But what was included in that was a fact sheet. And so it named the US Citizenship Act of 2021. And I want to read this one sentence from it that really stuck out to me that's very relevant to our conversation. So it starts where it talks about undocumented at the very beginning, but then later on it gets to reference for H1Bs, and it says the bill provides dependents of H1B visa holders work authorization, and children are prevented from aging out of the system. And so, Deep, I know you've got some opinions on that. I know all five of you do. And so I just want to kind of go around the horn here and give you each a couple minutes here on what your thoughts are around this. So I'm going to start with Deep, and then whoever just jump in, and I'll bring you up.
So first, I think it's a little unfortunate that whenever we're talking about these issues, especially like about kids who came here as children and grew up in the country, it always seems like within the policies, they're like dividing up groups. Like there's no need to divide up whether, someone's undocumented or documented, especially when it comes to kids. And then, like you said, like in the policy, it seems like until we see the text, we don't know, but it seems like dependents of H-1B would receive work authorization, which they should, but so should children of other non-immigrants. So I hope in the final text, those things are taken care of. Just in general, it's getting back to the point where I believe that the bill is going to have an accelerated path to citizenship for DACA recipients and other dreamers who were brought here as children as well. But unfortunately, it seems like those sections are going to leave out those who have some sort of status, which would be us. So even though everyone here on this call and many of the 200,000 plus documented dreamers in America would have qualified for DACA had we not had status back in 2012, we might not get that accelerated path to citizenship. So I think regardless of what happens to this bill, whether it's this bill that moves, which seems like it's going to be unlikely for this to actually become law, but whether like it's going to be parts of it that become law, whether there's going to be some sort of a dreamer bill later this year that's focused on that issue, I think it's absolutely necessary that we are included in that because I think it just doesn't make sense.
I agree. And I think that that's one of the things where it just specifically singled out H1B, but that's where it's ambiguous in terms of the language because we don't know if other dependents are going to be covered in that. We make assumptions. I know there's some comments about the feedback in the chat. I think we got that resolved. I'm not hearing it now. If you guys still are, can you drop a comment in the chat? Let me know if it's still going on or not. I think we got it figured out here. But anyone else want to comment on work authorization for dependents and children? Just go ahead, jump in, and I'll pull you up. Summer, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think just reiterating what Deep said about how there shouldn't be any departmentalization of kids that have grown up here, whether they are documented or undocumented, where they came on one visa or another. We're all equal in that sense of this is our home and this is all we've ever known. So protecting us is just as important as the next visa. And work authorization would allow us to, if we can't have that in-state tuition, we can't have those scholarships, then how are we supposed to help our parents pay those tuition bills? Like all the other kids can help their parents pay for tuition and housing and all of those things as well. So work authorization would change the game completely.
Yeah, it's that. I think bringing the discussion up about immigration reform is the good step, and I'm glad that the current administration took that step to bring up the immigration issues that are happening right now in America. But Deep and Summer said, there's still a lot of reform that needs to be made to those bills, but I think at least it's a good start just to bring attention to, all the silent discrimination that's going on right now. But, we'll continue to work towards, getting that bill reformed and, just getting the voice of people that are in our situation out there.
It's interesting about the work authorization, because I'm going to make two very quick points, and then I want to see if Palami or Anag had anything to say on this. But I'm going to use Anag as an example here. So first of all, I met my wife while working in college. We sold shoes in a mall together. So, unfortunately, that's fate for us, right? Fortunately for me, unfortunately for her, that she couldn't get away from me because we worked together. But I couldn't pay Anag to edit my videos if I wanted to hire him right now. And that is a problem, because here's somebody who has a skill. I could use his service, right? But I can't pay him as a W-2 employee of the H1B guy because he doesn't have work authorization. And so, Anag, Palami, I wanted to kick it over to you two to hit this question, still talking about H1B dependents and kids aging out, and not only it just being about you guys.
So actually, just going off of what you said about work authorization, there's actually something quite relevant happening that has happened to me. So like Anag was saying, he may have to pay out-of-state tuition once he switches over to an F1 visa. I don't have in-state tuition here in Arizona. I'm actually very lucky to have gotten a scholarship that helped pay for college here, but it is still not, enough to meet it at the level of my peers who are citizens or green card holders. But going off of the work authorization thing, I actually had a situation where I was interning for a nonprofit. It was a civic engagement-based nonprofit in Arizona, so it's kind of ironic that I was trying to get other people to register to vote during election season when I couldn't vote. And a friend of mine was also interning, and she was getting paid. And my internship advisor was like, "Well, I want to pay you, but I can't pay you." And it just goes into this loop that Summer was talking about. Tuition is extremely high, and there's just no way to undercut that cost on our ends, at least.
Yeah, and I understand universities, while they may be not for profit, they prophesize off of you. They just do. They don't build the stadiums that they build and the education colleges that they build without your tuition and very large donations, right? So, Anag?
Yeah, just to add on to that a little bit, of course, getting paid is a huge part of not having work authorization. But one part that might go a little bit forgotten is the idea that a lot of jobs require those kind of internships in college. For example, this just freshman year, I got really into consulting, and I joined a consulting club, and I got into leadership, and I was really involved in that club. And some of the plans that I was making was potentially after college, take a break for a couple of years, go work at consulting firms, and then go into med school. And that's a path that other people have taken. But the problem is that in order to get into a good consulting firm that may potentially fund your graduate school, you need to have internships your sophomore and your junior year. And those internships that you need at other smaller consulting companies or other companies in general, they don't offer unpaid internships at all. So many career options in general are just completely cut off from us because we can't even try to get those internships. And so no matter how qualified we may be, we just can't get that experience that's necessary to actually get the job that we want. But going back and talking about the current legislation, if you talked to me before I met any of these people, then I might have been happy with it. But the problem is that I definitely talk to so many people now, and I've heard all of their stories. And after hearing all of this, there's no way that I can be satisfied with a solution that just helps me or just helps a couple of us and ignores half of us, even though half of us are equally qualified to benefit from the legislation. So no matter whether this passes or not, I can say with certainty that I won't be done. All of us will continue working for a better solution.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that I decided back in July when this thing became much more bigger than me just talking about the H-1B visa is this concept of equality, and that it just kept growing in terms of this problem, and that wow. And then I look at equality for, we not to derail the S386 conversation, but there was a gap, and that's how I got involved with some of your parents, is that there was a gap of 2 years where some kids weren't going to be covered. And that leads me to why this is so important, because I think the thing that resonates with me most, and that most of you grew up and have been here more than 10 years. We've talked about that. Summer's been here 20. But while you weren't born here, most of you, and I watched the video on Improve the Dream, the concept of can't dream, literally had tears welling up in my eyes, because all of you identify as American, not necessarily your country of birth. And this is not intended to be politically incorrect, but when we look at the oral conversation that we're having here, and no offense to Summer, but she has the thickest accent of the group, I think that says a lot, right? And it really shows that you are American. And so to me, that's where the problem is. And that's where this whole concept of Improve the Dream just really hits me to my core. So help me understand, what does being American mean to you?
I guess I can go since. So I mean, for me, I guess being an American to me is about like just putting our differences aside and embracing each other for who we are. I think that the United States was and will continue to be a nation of immigrants, kind of like the melting pot that we always talk about, and that's what makes it so great, right? You see a mix of cultures and traditions wherever you go, and you wouldn't see this anywhere else. And to me, it's about being able to be able to contribute to that, and to be able to achieve whatever you want, as long as you work hard enough for it. And that's what's really that's what America really sends out to me. So it's the land of opportunities and dreams, and if you work hard for something, that you can really achieve it.
I'd have to agree with Vishal. Like, being American is having opportunity, and no one can stand in your way. Like, being here in America, there's so many more opportunities and different paths that we can take. Unfortunately, we're limited, but being American, there's nothing that you can't do. And I think that's exciting, and I'd like to be a part of that.
Yeah, in my opinion, just to obviously I agree with everything that's already been said, but I feel like being American is being different. I mean, a lot of people would make fun of us for using, Fahrenheit instead of Celsius, and using like miles instead of kilometers, but it's that individualism that kind of sets us apart from a lot of different countries. And growing up in that environment where that individualism and that idea that if you work hard, you can get anywhere. Just growing up in that environment, that was really instilled in me. And I feel like if I had that opportunity, I could maximize it. So I suppose that's just what all of us are fighting for.
I think being American, really, it's just encompassing all the experiences we've had. Many of us came when Summer came when she was 1 year old. Palami came when she was 5. So really just all the experiences that we've had, and growing up, and all of those really define what we are, and we are Americans, just not on paper. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think echoing what Michelle said, we've been raised here, we've learned here. And from our first elementary school history courses, we've learned about US history, we've learned about how this country was founded on immigrants. And we are those immigrants now, just without the legal status. So in all the ways that matter, I think all dreamers, documented and undocumented alike, are Americans, and I feel American.
And I think that that's the thing, is that the commonality between undocumented and documented is one thing, and that is it wasn't your choice to come here. And that is ultimately the thing that I think for me is the differentiator in why this is wrong, is that it wasn't your choice to come here. Your parents brought you here for a better opportunity for them and for you. And yet once you turn 21, that opportunity is like, whoop, gone. Right. And so I think for me, that's why I have gotten behind this as much as I have. I'm very thankful to the guys who introduced me to DEEP and improvethe-dream.org. And when we sat down and did this call and I took my notes, I knew that this was the right group to get behind because it's organized. The message is clear. Can't dream. Can't dream for the opportunity that you see every day in front of you. And I think that if you were outside of these borders and you were dreaming about coming here, it's different. But you've been here, you've seen the opportunity that's in front of you. And so I know you guys have been advocating. I know, Deep, you've been working very hard. You've been organizing. But I also know that there are several other advocacy groups that are supporting improvethe-dream.org. I know that there was a letter that was signed, back, I think it was January 12th. And I'll let you give the date and everything on that was addressed to President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the transition team as a whole. But can you tell us a little bit about the letter, what you're currently working on, and what can everyone that's watching right now do to help you with this cause?
Absolutely. So earlier this month, we actually sent a letter to the transition team addressed to President-elect, now President Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris. And we made sure they did receive it. So this is with the Biden immigration policy team has seen the letter, and we're hoping that we can get a meeting with the team as well. And what this letter basically said was all children, both undocumented and documented, should be treated equally in all future protections in a DACA program or legislation such as the DREAM Act. And I think it's an idea that everyone can get behind. And that's why we've been able to get support from a lot of national organizations as well. That letter had 6 other signatories, and some of them are quite prominent. Americans for Prosperity was on it, New American Economy, the Niskanen Center. And those are, in policy terms in Washington, D.C., those are known as big institutions, big organizations. And we're really happy to have their support. And I'm constantly working with them for their ideas and trying to see how we can help them and work together to get this issue known. And just to kind of let everyone know everything that's being worked on right now, there's kind of two steps that I'm kind of looking at guiding us to take. So number one is, if anything can be done administratively, that must happen. So there's some talk about potentially having something like a parole in place program that could be possible. There was a Cato Institute article recently by David Beer, who's an amazing policy analyst, and this was one of his ideas on there. And then there's obviously the initial filing dates that can be used instead of the final action dates for H4s. So that would help some of these documented dreamers in the H4 status. And that's something they can definitely do administratively. And then obviously, if there is any new DACA program, they can obviously remove the requirement of having no status on the date that they announce the program. So we don't know if that's going to happen, but those are things that we hope that the administration can definitely do. As far as legislatively, I think, as I mentioned before, number one, if there's any sort of comprehensive bill happening, all of us have to be included in the pathway that's there for Dreamers. There's likely going to be some sort of an accelerated pathway, and it doesn't make sense to kind of leave us hoping for some of the other paths in the bill when there's this clear 3 to 5 year path to citizenship offered for other Dreamers. And then what we're hoping is if there is no smaller DREAM Act that happens, or we're not included in that at least we can have like our own parallel bill that applies only to documented Dreamers. And one idea that I've been advocating for the last couple of years is to permanently end this issue. Number one, we need to end aging out. So, if you came here as a child and at age 21, you shouldn't have to self-deport. So those mechanisms could be put in place. Obviously, the work authorization as well. And then the third idea is if you came here as a child and you've been here for 10 years, after you graduate from college, essentially you should be able to get a green card, and it should be an uncapped category. So that's something that we've been pushing, and I hope that would be included in any immigration reform bill.
Man, it's just so good to hear everything that you're working on. And there was, I was just looking in the chat, there were some folks asking for the letter. The letter is on Improve the Dream on Twitter. You can find it through me at the H1B Guy on Twitter. I reshared and commented on the letter that's there and visible. So let me gonna post. I'll post the Twitter handle right now for Improve the Dream, and you can find it in one of their tweets. There were some folks asking for
it's a pinned tweet, so you should be able to see it.
So there's the Improve the Dream tweet there. It's in the chat. I was just kind of reading through some of the chat, and I'll tell you, I mean, I think it's almost 200 comments that are in the chat tonight. We set a record here on this channel, 125 plus. We're at 115 right now. So this tells me that you guys have support, your family and your friends that are coming to me, right? This platform to watch you guys. The thing that I started off with and that I want to get back to is that improvethedream.org/survey. If you have an aging out kid, a documented dreamer under 21, they need to go register. We've got to get them on the Slack channel too. The best way to do that is through the survey. Okay. If you have questions, you can DM or contact me directly. You can go to improvethedream.org. There's means to contact them: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So please make sure that you do that. Deep, you had something you wanted to say, add about Slack?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the Slack group, so there's the Improve the Dream Slack. I think we can post another link on here real quick. Someone will post it. But so we have a Improve the Dream advocacy Slack group. And then we also have partnered with another organization called The Hidden Dream. Okay. We'll send you the link for that as well. And in that group, we focus more on providing resources and professional opportunities for kids growing up under these statuses. Mm-hmm. So we'll post both of those links. But really, to help advocate, the best thing that everyone can do is get their kids involved. Just get them to join it. There's no set time commitment or anything like that. It could be as simple as signing petitions or making a really quick call. Just being in that group, they'll be able to get some information from us and connect with other individuals who, have grown up in their situations and can also help them out.
So I have the Hidden Dream. It's kind of a crazy link. I think your friend Sai's in the chat, Deep, and she's going to post, looks like potentially some links. The other thing that we'll do, and I'll try to, I'll update the links in the description. But in the description of this video is the Twitter, Improve the Dreams survey, take action, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And I'll add the Slack channel links into the description as well. Once Deep sends those over to me, I'll get them posted out. The other thing is the chat that's going on right now. This is just live chat comments. we need to make sure this video will publish tomorrow morning sometime, and I'll tweet it out. We need to make sure that we hit the comments on it. Very important to help boost awareness there. But we're coming up on an hour here, and I want to make sure that the message is not missed here. And that is the 5 of you who are willing to come on here and tell your story. I just can't thank you enough for allowing me to have you on. As someone who I could be Palami's parent, it resonates so much to know that, wow, a parent could be separated from their kid. And I think that ultimately for me as a parent is why I'm willing to put this out there, why it's a bit of a reach for my channel, but it's not, because it is an direct overlap. It just is. And so, if it makes sense for us to do this more, meaning maybe a monthly basis, I'd love to have you 5 on again. If we want to highlight some new people, absolutely. So we'll circle back on that and see if it makes sense. We can do an update on what Improve the Dream's working on. One of the things that I'm going to challenge you on, Deep, and I'm going to challenge you, Summer, and you, Anag, and you, Vishal, and you, Palami, and this is right now, is that it is time to start raising money. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but I'm going to put it out there for the 5 of you to know that it's one thing to organize in numbers, very important to do that, but the dollar bills speak. And it allows you to advocate with lobbyists and get in front of some people that you may not be able to do. So those of you that are watching, one of the things that I'm going to challenge you to do right now is make sure that you're emailing your House of Representatives, whatever congressional district you're in, even if you don't have voting rights. If you live in their constituency, let them know that you do. Let them know that you support reform for documented dreamers and even undocumented dreamers if you do, okay? That's up to you. But if you support one of these 2 causes, you have got to let your representatives know. And that starts with their staffers. So it's an email through their webpage, and you got to do that through your senators as well. Organizing in that. And it's very important that it isn't just the parents that are doing this. It's important that the kids, even if they're 14, 15, 16, even if they put together what I call a snackable, a 30-second video, and they email it to their leader about, hey, I'm Palami, I'm 14, and I age out in 7 years, right? That there's power in that. And so I'm going to challenge all of you to make sure that one, Deep, it's time to raise money. Okay. You didn't know I was going to hit you up with this today, but this is who I am. I like to push and I like to promote. And so when it's time, we're going to have you back on, and we're going to ask people to open up their wallets for the right cause. Okay. So that's what I offer to you. If it makes sense for us to do a Documented Dreamer series live episode 2, the platform is open for any of you, and we can talk about that later. So I wanted to just give you guys an opportunity to give some closing remarks. I need to read the ad copy, and then we'll wrap it up here tonight. So Anag, I just want to start with you since you went last. Want to give you an opportunity to have a closing remark here.
Sure. Yeah. So this is kind of a message to any potential legislators or whoever may be watching this at some point. No matter who you are, we're on your team. If you're Republican, we contribute a lot to the economy, and we support all of the same things that you do on a lot of things that relate to like contributing that way. And if you're a Democrat, then we're also on your team because we support undocumented workers, we support dreamers. We just want to be included on that. So no matter who you are, we're on your side pretty much.
Palami?
I wanted to kind of send this out to all of the other documented dreamers out there. things sometimes don't seem like they're going to work out. Things can sometimes seem hopeless, but there are resources out there for you, and this is the time for you to take action. So talk to your legislators and contact all the people in power and let them know that you are an American and you want that legal status.
Vishal?
Yeah, I think, what we're really fighting for here is, to an end to the silent discrimination that all these kids are fighting for. We're not asking to be treated differently. We're not asking to be given explicit rights or, indulged. We're just asking to be treated like the thousands of other kids who were brought here by their parents with a dream for a better life, and to be given a path to residency without aging out and being forced to leave our family, our friends, and the place that we're going to call home. It shouldn't matter how a child is brought here. These children should not be forced to abandon their goals because of their immigration status, and they deserve the same rights that the DACA recipients are given. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
By the way, I can't let this go unnoticed. Ankur Patel says nobody likes Chelsea, Vishal, and as we talked about, he's wrong. Because you do and I do, and we're suffering right now. But Summer said that Chelsea's garbage right now. Well, we back the blue, okay? Things will get back. As I've said, they still have the best American footballer in the world on their team. So we'll see how it transpires. But I'll tell you, a few years ago, we really got into Leicester City and that run that Jamie Vardy was on, and his skill is just sometimes unmatched. And they are a fun attacking team to watch right now. I think that they've got another championship in their future. So, Summer, I just teed up the soccer right for you. What would you like to close with tonight?
Yeah, first of all, Man United is the only way to go in the Premier League. Definitely not Liverpool that I'm seeing in the chat. Definitely not Chelsea. I'm sorry, but blue will never be the right way around to go. But I'd just like to thank you for having us on and giving us the opportunity to share our stories and bring light to a situation that not many people even know about, which is part of the problem. And I think there's great power in testimony, and I'd like to encourage. There's thousands of other kids that are just like me and the others that are on this live chat right now, and share your story and bring awareness to it, because you may feel alone, but you're not alone. There's so many of us, and we deserve to be treated equally, and one day we will be.
That's awesome. Thank you. And last but not least, Deep.
Well, first, Rob, we want to thank you for letting us use this platform to get the word out about Improve the Dream and everything that we've been working on. To all the parents and all the kids that may be watching, please take that survey, improvethedream.org/survey. I'll send you a Slack link and join the group, and I'll personally help you guys get learn how to contact your legislators and go to those meetings, and I'll even join those with you. We just need more people to do that, and I think we can really raise awareness about this. And then also, there's on the website, there's also a take action page, a call page with templates on there that you guys can use to raise awareness for this. Make sure to share with your friends. And yeah, we just need more kids getting the word out about this, and definitely follow us on social media for all the latest updates.
There's the take action there, pretty easy to find, and everything is just Improve the Dream. At Improve the Dream on Twitter, and then Facebook and Instagram at Improve the Dream. I think Palami, you're managing the IG account, is that right? So they've got a lot of different folks with their hands in it here, and I'm just really excited because I think when I first got connected with you, you didn't even have 100 subscribers on Twitter. I think you're over 600 and growing now. I'd like to take a little bit of credit for that, but I can't take much because it's all you and the platform and the message behind it. I am just a vehicle for your guys' voice. And so Thank you. I'm going to read this ad copy here, and then I'm going to close this out for the evening. So I just wanted to remind everyone that today's live stream is brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. This national job board network provides recruitment websites in 1,024 major U.S. metro areas. Each local job board is its own portal and is a low-cost resource for immigration recruitment ads for all industries and professions with a flat price of $225 per ad, regardless of which city you choose. RecruiterNetworks.com has been the #1 place for immigration attorneys, immigration ad agencies, and employers to meet the DOL requirements for the digital portion of the perm advertisement rules. RecruiterNetworks.com. Tell them the H1B guy sent you. My friend Richard's a great guy. He actually predicted some of what we call the thawing of the ice back before Christmas when I had him on the channel. You can go check that out. And again, in the description is all the connections for Improve the Dream here. Again, survey, take action. But really, what I just want to leave everyone with here is a big thank you to the 5 of you for speaking up. There's power in your voice, and what we've done here tonight is hopefully give some courage to others to speak up. My door is always open for the 5 of you. If I can ever help you in any walk in life as you navigate your opportunity here in this country, I'm here for you guys. And I just wanted to ask everyone who's still watching, like this video so that it gets promoted in YouTube and so that this story and this message is not missed. It's not about me and the H1B Guy channel. It's about Improve the Dream. It's about documented dreamers. And it's about doing the right thing for the future of our country. And so thank you guys very much. I just really appreciate you allowing me to have you on and tell this story. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up here tonight. I'm the H1B guy, your global source for all things H1B. But most importantly, thank you to the kids from improvethedream.org. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.